Ideally, this podcast is for anyone who's considering enlisting in the military, mainly high school students or someone 18 to 24. It'll also be beneficial to someone maybe who's already in the military or a family or friend of a person considering joining the military. Why? We talk about things that get in the way. We talk about things that the military and our government don't want you to know before you enlist. That being said, let's just have a simple conversation. Today, our conversation is going to be about the environment and how that impacts a person in the military. It's just a simple conversation over a cup of coffee. As I always say, I have my coffee here. It's decaf because you wouldn't be able to understand me if I had caffeinated coffee. So let's get started. The other day, I went to Safeway. I was in the produce section and I was looking for different things for a gathering that I was going to have. And I noticed when it came into the oranges that there were some that were on sale. And then there was another one down near the produce section. There were some same oranges, little halos. That's what they were. I don't. This is not a plug for anything. But then when I went to the actual produce section, there was a box and it says cuties. So if you're familiar with these little tangerines, you know these are name brands. And usually if you identify the name brand, you can also see the quality. So there was a commercial that said, if your kids don't have halos, they won't have halos. That was pretty funny. That means they're going to be bad. Or cuties. Very distinct label, very distinct. What I'm getting at is this. I was asking the clerk, what's the difference between the two? One was $1 cheaper. What can it tell me? But then when I looked at the actual product inside the boxes, the display box, they were actually the store brand. So I thought it was very interesting that at first glance, I'm thinking that I'm getting name brand tangerines, cuties. But actually, it was the store brand, which is a knockoff, which is probably a lesser quality than the brand that I thought I was going to have. So once I had that information, the decision was very easy. I'm not going to get a store brand because usually those are associated with thrifty, cheap, and the quality won't quite be there in most cases. But I went with the name brand with halos. So it was what I'm getting at is once I had the right information that I didn't have before, the decision was easy for me. There was clarity. And also what it did, it really made me lack in trust in that Safeway brand. They really was deceptive because the box they were in said cuties, and it's the same thing with military elimination. It's the same thing that I talked to people about was that the military with their ads, excuse me, with their ads and all their flair and all the gimmicks and all the just hype and all the glitter. In essence, they're hiding things that are detrimental to a person. That if they knew about these things, a lot of people may reconsider enlisting in the military. It's not that the military is a bad thing. It's just that they have now new, fresh, relevant information in which to make a decision on. So why do you think that the military and all the patriotism and all the slogans and the soldiers and sailors and everybody in their uniforms and looking all strapped and the slogans, all those crazy stuff, and thank you for your service and all that. I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but that's what they want you to see. That represents that box, the ribbon. But what they don't tell you is what's inside. And what's inside and what's actual product is, it's important that that's the true nature. That's what you're buying into. Because after the basic training, after basic training, yeah, and which is the hardest part. People say, man, you say you're going to go to the military, and the first thing that comes in your mind is probably basic training, how rough and tough it is, how the drill sergeant is yelling and screaming at you, and And that's, for most people, that's the military. But what they don't realize is that's just a simple 12 to 13 weeks of really just indoctrinating you mentally into the program, the military. The true nature of what you're walking into comes afterwards. That's the military. And I talk about a lot of time with the military, or it really, it's an institution. But what makes the military are the people inside, the officers mainly, the policies, how they treat your person. It always comes down to one person. And you got to name that person. You got to name those people. Those people that have names. But we're so easy to only say the military or the United States Army did this, the Army did that. But really, it wasn't. It's that person inside who did the action. That's something what you got to remember is. So as we talk about the military, first thing you got to understand is this. What is the difference between the civilian and the military? That's where everything starts at. That's where everything begins. Knowing that distinction before going in or when you're considering it is critical. It's very critical. In a nutshell, real basically, look at two things. On your left side is going to be your civilian side. Let's say the military. It's an organization, a government organization that has no, I can't put it, they're not held accountable. Whatever they want to do, they can do inside this umbrella of the military. Imagine you open a door, walking inside, and whatever they want to do to you, there's no rules. There's no rules. The Ferris Doctrine, I talked about before, there's no rules. The bottom line, I'm going to keep going on. There's no rules. But the Ferris Doctrine, they can do whatever they want to you. Autonomy is self-governed. They can control, they can rule however they want to. There's no accountability. One government agency cannot tell another government agency what to do. Those were the words of Patty Murray's, one of her person that works for them, a representative, whatever he talked. That's what she said. One government agency, regardless of what happens, cannot tell another government agency what to do. The military is its own little world. There's no accountability. I'm going to get into that. On the other hand, in the civilian world, there's accountability out to the max. There's accountability to the max. If you've been wronged, you can sue for damages. If someone violated you and your body, they can be held accountable in the criminal court. Everything. Just know. You have an employer that violates your rights, that employer can be held accountable in the courts, can be held accountable through lawsuits, but not in the military. So in one side, you have no accountability. On the other side, you have a whole lot of accountability. Your rights are protected in the civilian world. Your rights are not protected in the military. At some point in time, you have no rights. So get that through your thick skulls. Get it to, I don't care what your grandpa said who did World War 22. I don't care what your uncle said. I don't care what the government says. I don't care what the recruiter says. I don't care what the officer says. I don't care what any of those yahoo says. You have no rights. The Ferris Doctrine and Congress made that clear. Understand that. So now that's been said, let's talk about things that you will encounter in the military. Or things that I would say are commonplace in the military and that would have an impact on you in the military and beyond. So let's talk about the beyond part. You leave a job, you're protected. In most cases, your past employers can get in trouble for slandering you, saying bad things about you, about sharing things with you, about you to another employer. Not so with the military. They have what they call a DD 214. That tells you how you got out of the military. That follows you with the rest of your life. So if you got out in less than honorable conditions, like general, less than honorable conditions, that's going to follow you. And if somebody knows that you were in the military, they're asked to see your 214, especially a lot of government jobs, and it says less than honorable, you're probably not going to get that job. Or general, you're probably not going to get that job. Unless it's honorable, will it not negatively impact you. So something that's common, I would say right at the top, sexual harassment, rape. I'm going to use it, that's the word. Sexual assaults, all that is rampant in the military. And according to resources, and if you can Google it, it's out there. According to statistics, the category of women, mainly who are sexually assaulted, are between 18 and 24. And in most cases, it's done by someone within their command or higher than them, against them. See, that's the thing about the military is that while civilian life, you go away to your leave the job and there's no other, they don't have any say-so in your lifestyle. In the military, that's not 24/7. You are on the books. You're on the clock. You can get stationed with someone. You can get stationed. You can be isolated with the person, with your assailant. They can be in your chain of command. One article I read through the Department of Defense, now it's called the Department of War or whatever, 2023, 13% of the women that were in the military were sexually assaulted. And in most cases, that was by someone that was in her chain of command higher than her. Mainly, yes, your commanders. Yes, your platoon leaders. So people say, okay, that's not no big deal. It's 13%. When you consider maybe 100,000 women are in, 13% is almost 13,000. If my math is correct. If not, don't hate me. What does that look like? That looks like a basketball game, an NBA basketball game at full capacity. You're looking at right around 14,000 people. That's how many women were sexually assaulted that year. There have been some times where it was higher than that, as much as 20%. Higher than that. There was a sex scandal. I think it was their tailhook sex scandal that was happening with Navy. It was a convention in Las Vegas. Mainly it came down to a whole boatload of women, men, and some men were sexually assaulted or subjected to it. A whole lot. Probably more than 50. I had to look it up. It happens. So here's the catch-22. With not having any accountability, what happens is when someone is sexually assaulted in the military or along those lines, they become target of discrimination, of harassment. They become a target. It's flipped. In most cases, they don't get help. They're ostracized. They're the ones I'm struggling for the word to find, but they're the one that's put in trouble. Retaliated against. That's the word I'm looking. They're retaliated against. That leads to being singled out. That leads to things like you being subjected to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. That leads to self-isolation, post-traumatic stress disorder, and yes, and sometimes suicide. In the civilian sector, if that would have happened, they may still go through with in our country, we have a way of turning the victim into the bad person or questioning their motives. I'm not going to tell you it doesn't happen, that the people do lie about it, but at least in the civilian sector, the opportunity to fix the issue through the court legal system is there, especially if it happens on the job. You're able to sue, take them to court. If it's sexual harassment, it's there. And you got a course of action. And you got attorneys that will fight for you. But not so in the military. Second thing that's common in the military is post-traumatic stress disorder. That's another issue that people don't talk about, but happens a lot. It's a high incidence. So what does that mean? What that means is this, that going in, you have a clean slate. You're fine. But then, for whatever reason, something happens while you're in. That's become a triggering event for the rest of your life. Depending on what it is in severity, it will follow you for the rest of your life. The issues that sometimes you need support through mental health, counseling, help. But in the military, there is a stigma about getting help. There are going to be times where your command won't believe you or set you up for negative interactions because of that. And you also have a lot of doctors that would be very skeptical about putting that on the record, your mental health part of it. And quite frankly, if you got that on your record in the military, it's not good for you. It's not going to go well for you. They're like, I would say, the best way to understand about the military is that they peck at the weak. And people don't, they do it at the local level. Platoon sergeants, platoon leaders, section sergeants, section leaders, your commanders. And then having that will also affect your promotions. So while there's support in civilian sector for overcoming or for dealing with the post-traumatic stress disorder, in the military, it's not as much. You're going to be labeled, and it's not going to go well for you, which also sets you up for more retaliation. I can speak to that myself with a couple of surgeries I had, and how my command tried to get me to violate my profile. That was after a couple of days of surgery. They wanted me to get away my crutches, stop doing that. They didn't believe me. It was a mess. But I knew that I needed to take care of myself, and I was willing to go against the grain. What happened was that when I was transferred, because this happened when I was in Korea and came back to my unit here in Fort Lewis, the first sergeant must have called this command. And yeah, I went through stuff here at Fort Lewis I've never had to deal with anywhere else. And it was and they've tried to. I had platoon leaders who falsified documents against me in your fitness report, and even everybody knew it wasn't true. But my sergeant major of the battalion said, "We know it's not true, but there's nothing we can do about it." And make a long story short, it didn't matter because I was getting out anyways. But what it did help me understand was that, wow, I had a stellar career, and towards the end, all this stuff was happening. I only come to find out that this happens even for people who's retiring. You can have stellar careers, but they're going to try to pick with you. 18, 19 years, they're going to try to mess with you. There's a word they call it, that's FU. That's what you're getting into. I'm digressing. I'm going to move on. Then there's the issues of suicides. I'm sorry to say, the issue of suicides. The military has a high incidence of suicides. A high incidence of suicides. A lot of people, there's statistically shown the gender and the race of those who commit suicide. It's sad. And there's another mental health issues. Sometimes people aren't getting the help they need. I think that's what I'm getting at. They don't get the help you need. You don't get the help you need in the military. You're ostracized. That's something you got to understand. That if you come across something and things ain't working for you, you don't get the help. What you do get is you get a boot up your butt and you get a knife in your back. But that's something they don't tell you. The legal part of it here, at least in the civilian sector, there's a lot of transparency. In the military, you almost have to, it's transparency. There's what they call a due process. Before charges are filed, before your civil action can move forward. In the military, it's due process on paper only. That's that eye candy. That's that box that says due process. But when you look inside, it's nothing. It's malicious intent. It's nothing. It's opposite. Case in point, a commander can take something very simple, very basic, that would not even qualify under the standards needed to bring charges, and they can make it fit. And my next unit, my next pod season is all gonna be all about that. I'm opening up Pandora's box, talking about what the National Guard did, what Brett Doherty did, in relation to everything I'm speaking here. So so you may not do what you're accused of doing according to the law or regulations, but you can be charged with it in paper. What does that mean? They can write whatever they want, but they say you're guilty and proven innocent. Not in the military. It's like this is the charges. This is what you did. Now you got to look at the elements that are required to have met in order to bring those charges, to bring that action. That part right there, it's what is overlooked. It's not even. It's overlooked. Case in point, my friend, as I mentioned it, wasn't read their rights according to the Article 31 rights, and where there's clear intent or there's clear suspicion that an act has been committed, you're required to have your rights read to you, an opportunity to have an attorney present. And we know the Miranda right warnings. We know that in civilian sector, if that does not take place, then the charges do not stick. They have to dismiss. And a good attorney, even a half good attorney, can make that stick. Not so in the military. Not so in the military. What you understand is this: there's no accountability. You're doing a great job, there's no problem. Oh my goodness, I forgot. You pushed away your commander who wanted to have sex with you. Now what? Oh, you were about 2 minutes late for your reporting, let's say your muster or your attendance, your formation as a military. They call them for different things. You were a couple minutes late. Guess what? You failure to report to duty. Yes. And there they got you. Do you see how that works? Or in a case you're supposed to be doing a job and you missed a step. Oh, no problem. Just go back and fix that step, or just fix what you had to fix. No. Dereliction of duty, unable to perform. Article 15. Do you see how simple that was? It happens all the time. It happens all the time. Maybe you go out there, you have one too many drinks, you get a DUI. The first one. Oh, now let's see here. You didn't want to have sex with me illegally, so now you're a DUI because you're trying to overcome the trauma of of having to push me away, and then finally, I get it. But then you go and tell your chaplain or IG on me, and of course it goes away, but you're still in my unit. And guess what? That DUI now becomes an Article 15 or anything like that. So I'm hoping you can see what I'm getting at. When there's no accountability, you're fair game for anything. You may get promoted, and they can take that promotion back. So let's say you get promoted, E1, E2, E3, E4, E5. You do something like push your commander away, or you don't have sex with your higher commander, or you're becoming whatever. They do an Article 15, which is non-judicial punishment. It means that you don't have to go before a court. You don't have to go before a jury. And they take away your rank. And they demote you, forfeit 2 or 3 months worth of pay, and your rank. Oh my goodness. And you didn't do anything. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. And when it does happen in the military, and there's a big scandal in the newspaper talking about sexual, and you can read it, sexual assaults, their catchphrase is, we're investigating it, and we would no longer condone it in the military, but they don't do anything. So what is all this coming down to? What it comes down to is this. What you think you're getting, the support, what you think you're getting in the military, if it's based on what you think you're getting in civilian and it carries over, that's where you're having your mistake at. That's your mistake. There's two worlds there's two worlds you're dealing with. The one world is accountability, and the other, which is civilian, and the other world is military, and there's no accountability. You literally are their property. You're literally are a slave to that system. You basically are a slave. Let that sink in. And regardless of who says it, don't believe them. Don't believe them otherwise. Do your due diligence. Google it. I say Google it all the time. Just do your research. If you even do your research. And there's a lot of veterans that have gone through this, especially the sexual assault stuff. It's on YouTube. They're telling their story. Those are the ones who had the courage and the ability to come forward. But for everyone who doesn't come forward, there's probably 100 that didn't, but it had the same that's going through the problems. They're suffering. Oh, my friend in National Guard, these guys, I call them National Guard, but it happens in a lot of the units. And why is that bad? Because you're going to National Guard for that 1 week in a month thing and 2 weeks a year, and maybe it's having your college paid for, a little extra money in your pocket. Maybe you want to extend your military career out. But in essence, there's no guarantees for none of that. There's no guarantees for none of that. It's just like, I don't know. It's weird. It really is weird. And I wish I had known about this before. I would never even join. I would never. And a lot of the young people I talk with, if I share this with them, they change their minds. There's a lot of organizations out there that talk about this, that provides you the insight, provides you the information. All you had to do is just, one of them is counterrecruitment.com. I think I mentioned some of them before. They're not telling you this. Just like the Safeway didn't tell me that the oranges inside didn't represent the oranges that were on the box label. They was betting I would just pick it up based on the label. So people are just betting that you just join the military just because it's a patriotic thing to do. Thank you for your service. They don't bet. The recruiter, the military officers, they don't bet that you're going to look deeper. And here's a problem. When you're in and you start digging because you got issues, it's too late. It's too late. It's too late. And yes, it doesn't happen to everyone, but it happens to enough people that the ones who didn't happen to was just lucky. They were just lucky. You can't go to your civilian, your congressperson. They're not going to help you. Doggone it, they're the ones who passed laws preventing the military from holding their command accountable. You can't go to the civilian courts because you just can't. They're not going to do anything because of the laws, because their hands are tied. Their hands are tied. And even your congressional leaders, their hands are tied. Like I said before, you can't tell another organization what to do, and you can't tell a commander what to do with their troops. It just doesn't work that way. Military just cannot function when the troops can sue their command. They just can't. And honestly, I don't want it. But at least tell them the truth up front. Let them make a decision. I think that's just about it. My coffee's still cold. I'll take a couple of sips. I'm not coughing anymore. That's, in essence, what you're dealing with. You're dealing with two worlds. I'm coming down to the end of this season. Season is 19 episodes, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because the 19 Acts of Injustice by Brett Dockery and Robin Williams of the National Guard and JAG. That's going to be it. And that's what I can say. But the two worlds, and it comes down to about the level of accountability. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to is the things that can happen to you involuntary that they don't talk about, which is a sexual assault. And yes, I talk a lot about women, but men get sexually assaulted as well. It's a little mixture. Whether it's hazing, whether it's outright just gang rape, and that's happens, whatever. If it's just trying to fight off your command, just trying to say no. Post-traumatic stress disorder happens, and it's nasty, and it's not good. It sticks with you the rest of your life, and its severity really depends on how much help you get at the onset. Usually, by the time they get out and you get to the VA level, it's probably it's rampant. And a lot of times, people they turn to drugs and alcohol to self-manage it. Henceforth, a high alcoholism rate in the military as well. Then you also have the lack of accountability in the judicial system, which is non-existent. They also talk about you got your chaplain, you'll have your IG, Inspector General you can talk with. All that's in the same pot. There's no accountability. Your chaplain, I would say I dealt with those boys, and they're good for graveside ceremonies, if you know what I'm talking about. But anything else is part of it. They're part of the issue. They're part of the problem. It's better just to pray to God and let things happen. Because going to the chaplain doesn't work. Maybe, if I say maybe, I don't know. You might get but it comes down to 99.99999% chance that you'll get help. That's what this is all about. A summary of what I've been talking about for the greater part of my season. But as you're thinking about it, look at those things. Look at what's inside the box. Look at the product. And if you're able to say, you know what, I'm going to serve, and whatever happens, let the chips fall where they may, I'm all in, then go for it. I hope things work out for you, because it's never how you plan it in your mind, and it never comes in a way you think it comes. It always comes in ways at the time that you'd least expect it. Imagine you're deployed in your family back home and you have a kid, and something bad happens to your kid, and then they won't let you come home to see them. They won't let you come home. Your aunt, your parents dying. They won't let you talk to them. And then you break. And in the breaking, you disrespect an officer. You miss a formation. You self-medicate with your drinking. Now you're subjected to either court martials or use Article 15, non-judicial punishment. Think about those things. In the meantime, I hope you come join me for season number 3. My next episode should be almost my last one. I'm just going to do a brief overview of what I talked about and one thing that I haven't. Until next time, just keep asking questions, look for answers, and know what you want.